One of the occupational hazards of being involved in resistance training is injuries. Just about anybody who's engaged in exercise for any length of time, sooner or later, will develop some sort of injury that can definitely interfere with training progress, since you won't be able to train that area of the body that's injured. That's just common sense. I've seen people that try and train through an injury, which is very stupid because it just makes it worse. But what are the things you can do? Let's say an overview. Let's talk about what are the things that you can do that can help you avoid a training injury. Well, to discuss that, you have to also mention the things that cause training injuries. And perhaps the main cause of most training injuries would be incorrect training technique. I train at the famous Gold's Gym in Venice, and I'm going to tell you right now that, all right, I train at night. It still has a good amount of people. It's not as crowded as during the day. I would not train during the day because I can't train in crowded gyms. It literally nauseates me. I'd walk out the door. I can't because at this stage of the game, I like to keep a good pace going. Minimum rest, go from one exercise to another. I'm just my goals right now are just to try and stay healthy and avoid losing muscle. I'm not trying to be big, and this fits my goals to try to get in and out of the gym fast. And I can't handle crowded gyms because these people, they get in the way. They sit on the machines with the cell phones. I have to train at night when there's less people. But I know I went off on a tangent there, but what I'm trying to say is the technique I do see at night is absolutely horrendous. I go way back to the original Gold's Gym with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Robbie and all those other guys, the so-called golden age of bodybuilding. And I don't remember, even back then, even ranked beginners, when they joined the original Gold's Gym, they didn't use anywhere near the horrible form that I see today. The technique they use is absolutely, unbelievably horrendous. And what's really interesting about that, when you think about it, back then, at the original Gold's Gym, you didn't have nearly the resources to teach you how to train properly as they have today. There was no internet, there was no videos, and there was almost no bodybuilding books. The only books they had back then, there was a couple of rehab books which featured weight training. Nothing. You basically had to learn on your own. What these people would do, these, let's say, beginners or people who joined the original Golds, they'd come in, they'd watch the bodybuilders, the champion bodybuilders, and other people train. These people knew how to train. They knew what constituted proper technique, and they imitated them. So they automatically learned how to, train by watching the other guys. Unfortunately, today, the people in the current Gold's Gym, it's very obvious they don't look at any of these available resources like videos and books and whatever. They just make up things as they go along. I mean, they do the range of movement they do. I mean, I've seen people, clowns doing curls like this. They go like this. And then there's people that load up the leg press machine with like 8 plates and go down not an inch, but like a millimeter. You can't even see the weight moving. And they think that's an exercise. And then they use weird positions where they'll twist their body into or contort it. They're doing shoulder, they do this weird type of raise, which I don't even know which part of the deltoid muscle it's working, but they're stressing the joints, where this kind of stuff is absolutely inevitable to cause an injury. So again, the first reason why people get injured is they're using absolutely horrendous technique. Not to mention that these people will never make muscle gains. They will never change because they're not working the muscle properly. And another reason, obvious reason for for injuries, I should say, are too much weight. Just like I said earlier about the person with the leg press. I mean, use a weight you can handle. I mean, the idea is that these people think that if they lift heavy weights, they're going to gain muscle size because they've been told that, which is a certain grade of truth to it, that the whole philosophy or basis of progressive resistant exercise is to gradually add resistance that will be accommodated by the body in the form of added muscle growth. That's true. But the point is, you want to use the amount of resistance that you can lift in correct form. You have to control the weight. if you bench press or something with too much weight, you're going to tear your shoulder out. You're going to get a pec tear. You have to use an amount of weight that you can handle in good form and good control, and with a cadence of 2 seconds to lift it and 4 seconds to lower it. That lowering part is called negative or eccentric contractions. Half the gains in muscle size come from the lowering of the weight or eccentric contractions. Eccentric contractions tend to be more potent at building muscle than the raising of the weight, which is called concentric contractions, because negatives or eccentric contractions cause more muscle fiber damage, and the body accommodates by increasing the thickness of the muscle fibers, which we recognize as muscle growth. So again, always use a weight you can handle, or you will definitely get an injury. There's no question about it. Another thing that I see a lot of people do is they don't warm up at all. There's different ways to warm up. My favorite way, it's something I've always used, is to do my first 1 or 2 sets with a very light weight. I'll do as many as 20 or 30 reps of any exercise. I'll the same exercise. Let's say barbell curls. I'll do my first. When I do barbell curls, I'll use a weight like a 30-pound barbell, which is of course extremely lightweight, and I'll do 30 reps. What that does, it does 2 things. It gets the blood flowing in the muscle, and it kind of warms up the muscle. It kind of like makes it amenable to the stress that's going to occur on the second and third sets, where I immediately go to heavier weight. And by doing so, it prevents injury, because when you first work a muscle, the muscle's relatively cold. I don't mean it feels cold, but the tissue is stiff. It's not warmed up. It's the best way to describe it's like stiffer, especially the connective tissue, and this portends an injury. If the muscle's stiff and you put too much stress on it too fast, you're gonna get an injury. So you always warm up. I've seen some crazy stuff. I've seen some bodybuilders go right to the gym, get under a bench and start bench pressing over 300 pounds with no warm up. All right, these guys are pretty strong. Some of them could use 400 or 500 pounds, but that's too heavy a weight to use as a warm up. You got to use a really light weight that you could do like at least 20 reps with and up to 30 reps as a warm-up set. I'll talk about stretching in a second, because a lot of people like to warm up by doing stretching. In fact, I'll talk about it now. A lot of bodybuilders, especially bodybuilders who've been around for years, they believe that stretching is a good warm-up. Unfortunately, it's not really that good for resistance exercise, because if you do a stretch and hold it more than 30 seconds, you actually it has a reverse effect. You kind of loosen the connective tissue, and because of that, you want to have the connective tissue, like ligaments and tendons, you want them to be relatively tight when you're working out, because it increases the tensile, what they call the tensile strength of the connective tissue. It prevents it from being injured, and when you stretch, you kind of like make it a little looser. I'm being very general and non-specific here, but that the effect basically is, to put it in a simple fact, when you stretch right before you do a weight exercise, you're making yourself 24% weaker on the average, because you're kind of eliminating a lot of the strength of the connective tissue from the exercise. Now, what about stretching between sets? Well, it all depends. If you do a short stretch, people like Frank Zane, who's a 3-time Mr. Olympia, he's a big believer in stretching between sets. When he used to do lats, he would like hold onto a pole and stretch backwards, or he would stretch his triceps. There's two schools of thought on that. A study a couple of years ago showed that stretching between sets actually promotes muscle growth, but other studies are not so sure. But I would say, based on the existing research, if you do short stretches between sets, it's not going to be harmful, because the reason being, you've already warmed up. And your kind of ligaments are already set to go, and doing a short stretch between sets is not going to weaken them or take any strength away. So stretching between sets is fine. If you do want to stretch, if you are a big believer in stretching for flexibility, you could stretch after the workout. And again, to get the best benefit, you do what they call static stretching, which is holding a stretch position for up to 30 seconds. If you do it anything less than that, you're not going to get anything out of it. There's plenty of references to show what type of stretching you could do, but it's best, again, reserved. There's a couple of myths related to stretching, that it helps prevent muscle soreness. It's not true. It does not prevent muscle soreness. If you're stretching because you want to help your flexibility, that is true to only a certain extent. However, recent studies show that the degree of flexibility that you can attain from doing stretches is not nearly as great as most people think. But if it makes you feel better and whatever, it helps you relax or wind down from the workout, there's nothing wrong with stretching after the workout. That's fine, but it's not going to eliminate muscle soreness. That's just not true. Another way of getting injured is having a bad spotter. Let's say you want to do a heavy bench press, and you want to get a certain number of reps, but you're not sure if you could get. Let's say you want to do 6 reps, but you're not sure, but you want maybe a little help to get that last rep. You get a spotter. Some of these guys won't handle the bar properly. It might tip over to the side, and you wind up with a pec tear. So, and again, a good spotter will give you very little help. I've seen people in the gym where they put their hands on the bar where they're actually lifting the weight. The guy doing the exercise is doing maybe 10% of the lifting, and the spotter is doing 90% of the lifting. And that's a bad spotter. I mean, that's self-delusion. You're just fooling yourself. So that's another possible way. Another two possible advanced training techniques are great for kind of pushing past the pain barrier. For example, let's say, again, using barbell curls as an illustration, you're doing a set of barbell curls. You've done, let's say, 8 strict curls, but you want to get 3 extra ones. So you kind of throw the bar up halfway. They call that cheating. That's not too bad. But however, if cheating is done to a greater extent, let's say throughout the exercise where you're throwing the weight up and you're not controlling it, that's a very good way to get a bicep tear and a serious injury. Same with force reps. You got to be careful with force reps because force reps basically work beyond the pain barrier, and you're putting extreme tension on the muscle. And if you take it too far, you can easily get a serious muscle tear. So another probably, I would say this is probably the most common cause of injuries, is too frequent training. I've seen people come in and train. This is insane. They train each muscle 7 days a week, every day. They never give the body a chance to recover. That's almost a sure route to a serious injury. These people are going to get injured without question, even if they lift light weights. You have to understand, your body doesn't grow. Your muscles don't grow when you're working out. They grow during the rest period. You got to give your muscles enough rest to recover. And you have to, for example, you kind of deplete muscle glycogen stores when you work out. Glycogen is a stored form of carbohydrate. It's the primary fuel for anaerobic exercise, like bodybuilding movements. And you got to give your body a chance to replenish the glycogen that you burn up when you work out. Recent study, they used to think that when you did a set, let's say 3 sets of bicep curls, that you exhausted anywhere from 24 to 48% of the glycogen stored in the biceps after 3 sets of bicep curls. But they recently realized that glycogen is stored in different parts of the muscle. They used to think it was stored in one basic area of the muscle. They now know that it's stored in different parts, and they now realize that when you work out with weights, you actually burn much more glycogen than was previously believed. And it takes anywhere from about 24 to 48 hours, depending on the size of the muscle, to replenish glycogen. And the best way to do that is to eat carbohydrate foods. But if you don't replenish glycogen, then you're going in with a poor fuel source, and that again raises the risk of an increased injury. Not to mention that if you train too often, you're not allowing your muscles, the ability for your muscles to repair the damage that was incurred by the actual exercise, which means that you're heading definitely for an injury. Another factor in injuries is bad nutritional practices. I don't think this really applies to many bodybuilders, but if you're not eating enough protein, for example, this is more likely to occur when you're on a stringent, low-calorie diet. A lot of bodybuilders cut their calories so low, they might not realize they're not getting enough protein to support muscle and connective tissue. If you don't get enough protein to support muscle connective tissue, the tissue gets weaker and you have an injury. If you're lacking certain essential nutrients like magnesium, zinc, certain minerals, certain vitamins, you're also interfering with recovery processes in muscles, which set you up for injury. So let's see. Oh, another thing that could possibly lead to injury, you probably heard me talk about this before, is lack of concentration. And this is an epidemic right now. The people that bring cell phones into the gym and do a set and then go on their cell phone and play with Facebook, Instagram, or any other garbage you're looking at, they have zero concentration in their workout. So when they put the phone down and do the exercise, they're not thinking about the exercise. They're thinking about what they just looked at on their cell phone, and the lack of concentration can cause an injury. You might twist your arm a certain way without realizing it. It can easily cause an injury. When you work out, your focus should be 100% on the exercise. If you want to, look at your cell phone, I personally believe cell phones should be left in the locker. That's what I do. I never bring my cell phone into the on the weight floor. I do bring my cell phone in when I do aerobics because I use it to monitor my pulse. It's the only time I bring a cell phone in. If you're using your cell phone to listen to certain music, that's okay. If you're using your cell phone to record your workout, your number of reps you did or something, if you do that between sets, that's fine. But if you're bringing in a cell phone because you just want to play with it and look at crap like Instagram, Facebook, or any other garbage that really has nothing to do with your workout, I'm going to give you a flat statement. You're not serious about your training. You're not a serious person training. And sooner or later, you're going to get an injury and you'll be gone, which really is neither here nor there because you weren't making any gains and you weren't serious to begin with. So it's kind of a moot point. So anyway, that's about it. Those are, I'm sure, I agree now. People are probably saying, hey, that's just common sense. You didn't need to make a video about that. Well, think about how many people ignore what the points I made in this video. Think about how many people don't use concentration, use poor form, and all this. And, they might not even be conscious of it. And that's why I saw the need for this video. So, keep this in mind. If you follow what I said in this and use good form, use weights you can handle, an injury is not inevitable, contrary to popular belief. It's not inevitable. So that's about it for this video. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, effective fat loss techniques, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, all of these topics are covered in depth, in extreme depth, in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. And when you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, general medicine. Current subscribers only will also get an invitation to join my backwards. Current subscribers only can send me a short email through my Applied Metabolics website, where I will answer short questions, anything related to something they might have read in the newsletter, or anything that comes to mind, as long as they're short questions. But you have to be a current subscriber. I don't answer unsolicited questions. So that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever had, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. And by the way, if you guys, anyone viewing this, if you have any ideas that you'd like me to cover for future videos, send it into Generation Iron. They'll send it to me and I'll try to cover it for you.